Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another MassMedic and Biomed Digital Women in MedTech event. So my name is Rachel Robinson. I'm the Vice President of MassMedic, and it is great to be here with all of you. I really do appreciate you joining us for this. I'd like to start out by saying if you're new to the Women in MedTech program, this is a signature series that MassMedic runs every other month. And we are thrilled to have an excellent panel of women in STEM leaders joining us for this particular program. If you have questions and would like to join us, we would encourage you, please. We do these, as I said, every other month. The next one we are doing will be in June. And if you have any questions, you can go to massmedic.com or email me at rachel@massmedic.com. I'd love to connect with you. I cannot start off without thanking our sponsors for this program. So we do have some amazing series sponsors who support us throughout the entire year, and they are Toxicon, Zymedica, and the Mullings Group. We could not do what we do without our partners and sponsors, so please join me in saying a really great thank you to them. And also a big thanks to Informa for letting us bring this event to the Biomed Digital event. This is a really exciting opportunity for us, and we're excited to continue partnering with them. So one more quick plug, I will say, I encourage you to join us for networking after this event. My understanding is that you can go and use your swap card profile to find the networking information, and we will be there to hopefully meet with you and connect and learn more about the cool things that you all are doing. So with that note, I am going to welcome Rosalind Año from Toxicon to kick off this session. And Rosalind, thank you so much for guiding this and being a wonderful supporter of the program.
Thank you, Rachel. Hi, this is Rosalind Año from Toxicon Corporation. First, I just want to say how very excited I am to be moderating this distinguished and totally awesome panel of women in medtech. And I also want to thank Rachel and Brian from MassMedic for inviting me to participate in this. As Rachel mentioned, Toxicon has been a longtime partner of MassMedic through the years, and this event in particular has been near and dear to me. And so I really thank you for thinking of me. And what I'd like to do first is just introduce our panelists one by one, starting with myself. If you can, just give a few minutes of who you are and how you got to where you are in your career. So I've been with Toxicon now for 14 years. My background is actually in biomedical engineering from Boston University. And my undergrad was focused in visual perception and neuroscience. And through that, I got a job right out of school working for a CRO that did imaging and for clinical trials. And so I was crunching data for a number of years, realized that I really missed engineering and I wanted to get into building medical devices. I wanted to get involved early on in that sort of R&D, investigational type of exercises. When I got my hands dirty, I realized I wasn't very good at engineering. And so I found my career path taking me more towards a CRO where I could partner with different manufacturing companies and speak engineering language. And so that brought me to Toxicon, where I started out as an account manager. Then I became a territory rep. And here I am now managing our entire North America sales team, where I oversee 10 different business reps and account representatives. So it's been quite a journey, and I really want to hear how the rest of our panel got to where they are. Asmita, would you mind telling us about yourself?
Thanks, Rosalind. And first of all, I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. My name is Asmita Kanolkar, and I'm the Senior Director at SMC. My responsibilities at SMC are for technical strategy and commercialization, specializing in medical devices and pharmaceutical services. I have about 24 years of experience in manufacturing, new product development, advanced quality planning, and recently I'm using all of those things that I've learned over my 24 years of experience, bringing all of that focus into accelerating the drug device combination product and bringing in novel platforms, novel technologies to the patients, taking into account really the drug aspect, the device aspect, and the patient aspect, and being able to combine those three through a risk control strategy to be able to really accelerate the entire development process. Starting off, as any girl really had no clue where I was starting off. I initially wanted to do some business, learn about commerce, and then slowly started to get interested in the STEM field and learning about physics, chemistry, mathematics, and started to really build upon my strength in those areas. Went through my engineering school at WPI and did my master's in material science and engineering. And from there, I joined medical devices. And through the field of medical devices, I wore many hats. I was able to install many lines, automation cells. I established some manufacturing sites. I did some of the validation programs and full commercial launches on some product. And that has really brought me to this stage now where now I combine all of these learnings from strategy into commercialization and sort of mix my technical background with some of the business background to really be able to bring products and technology platforms faster to the market. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Rosalind.
Thanks so much, Esmita. You have definitely been involved in many aspects of engineering and manufacturing. We'll dive into that a little bit later. Andrea, if you wouldn't mind, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here with all of you. So as she said, my name is Andrea Polito. I'm CEO and founder of SimplyFed. We're a tele-lactation company redefining infant nutrition. So how did I get to where I am today? So I'm very lucky to be the daughter of two engineers, an electrical engineer and a mechanical engineer. But I actually went, similar to Rosalind, to be a biomedical engineer first at Cornell. And I did research surrounding tissue engineering. After that, I went and worked at Boston Scientific as a cell biologist for a few years. And then I went to grad school at MIT where my research was in telebehavioral health. So I made that switch from the cell biology, tissue engineering side to the telehealth, digital health side. And out of MIT, co-founded my first company called Smart Scheduling, which was later acquired by Athena Health. So that was my first entrepreneurship experience. I learned a ton. And after that, I was a product manager at Athena. And then I took a very different turn and actually, after going back to grad school for a little stint at MIT, I dropped out to go serve in government for a bit as a presidential innovation fellow based out of the White House Office of Science and Tech Policy under the Obama administration. And that was only supposed to be a year-long fellowship, and I was supposed to go back to MIT to finish my PhD. But I ended up loving working in government so much and ended up spending 3 years there, where I later led this innovation initiative there called the Innovators Network at the Department of Veterans Affairs, which was across 35 VA medical centers. And we had over 150 innovation projects in our portfolio. And VA is the largest healthcare system in the country, so just learned a tremendous amount there. After that, I then went into education and faculty member at Cornell in the College of Engineering and College of Business, and had my first daughter, May. I'm actually 38 weeks pregnant with my second daughter. So I'm super happy to be here because it was a 50-50 chance that I'd be able to make it. But with that experience of having my daughter, I saw firsthand how hard it is to be a mom, be a parent, but also some of the challenges surrounding infant nutrition. And that's what inspired me to found SimplyFed, which is what I'm currently working on right now. So thrilled to be here. And back to you, Rosalind.
Oh, Andrea, that is just so amazing that you're sitting here with us. And I hope that everything goes well in the rest of your pregnancy and throughout your career. Shoma, you're the last of our panelists, but certainly not the least. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Of course, and thank you all so much. It's also so great to be among such talented people and be able to be on this panel. So I started out, it's funny, very similarly to many of you. Started out in the electrical engineering area. I was good at math and science when I was in high school and was kind of interested, not really sure what I wanted to do. Kind of didn't love electrical engineering, but then I did my master's in biomedical engineering and I loved it. I loved the idea of applying engineering concepts to medicine. So that landed me in a medical device company. So I started out as basically, it was a clinical product manager, but might also know it as a system engineer. So really writing specifications and so on, which I didn't know a lot about at the time. But so spent a number of years at that company, and then moved into product management, which I also loved. Loved being with the customers, the doctors, the nurses, just figuring out workflows and all that kind of thing. Then my career also took sort of a turn, and I went into more business development and account management. That was my first exposure to operations, where we did a big ERP implementation and really got into the nitty-gritty of how all that stuff works. So then with the diverse roles that I had, the next logical step was to become a general manager. So I did that for a little while, and finally ended up landing at Harvard Bioscience as the VP of operations. So I'm really responsible for all the operations in Holliston, Mass. So, just making sure that the factory is running well and that the site is all good and all the people are good. But I really take a P&L view because, the financial side is also so critical to the overall. So, kind of that general manager mindset still, you can't really get rid of it. So thank you very much. Back to you.
Oh, thanks so much, Shoma. So, my takeaway from this is that while we all sort of started very similarly, we all had a desire, we all had this interest in STEM sciences. We were probably really good at math, but our journeys have taken all different paths. And for me, it's that there's nothing wrong with getting your feet wet in a bunch of different areas to really define where you want to go. And it's certainly like lateral moves, downward moves, upward moves. It's a journey. And at the end, as long as you still have that desire, you can be successful. And so all of you are a tremendous inspiration to me, and I'll probably be picking your brains about starting a company or getting to be a VP. That sounds awesome. One of the unique things about this discussion, right, is that we're all women working professionally during a global pandemic. Now, some of the things that are being introduced to now the general public, women have had to deal with for generations. And that happens to be your work-life balance. Do you feel that the pandemic has been the great equalizer? What has been your experience in terms of balancing work and life? I'd like to actually start with Andrea on this one, simply because her more urgent situation, I don't even want to call it a situation, must be so challenging. Can you talk a little bit about your experiences there?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for the opportunity. And it certainly is the situation. So obviously this past year has been a tragedy in so many different dimensions. And we've seen this all over the media that we now know that this pandemic, they're saying, has set women back a generation in terms of the fact that we've had to drop out of the workforce or juggle both aspects of home life and work life. And we've been disproportionately affected. Also, women tend to be on the front lines in service-based industries that have been more affected by the pandemic. And so in general, this pandemic has not been ideal for women for so many reasons. And it's exposing a lot of the systematic issues in this country. The fact that we don't have paid parental leave or childcare, or there's no safety net system. And what does that look like? And the fact that women do tend to take on this burden in their home life. Now, that all being said, I will say there is some silver linings and bright lights, and not that you want to silver line anything that's happened in this past year with the pandemic, but let me give you some specific tactical examples of things that have been easier during the pandemic, or I'm hoping lead to transformations across the workplace. One of those is the fact that we have now an ability to have a full remote first culture. And the fact that this does present some flexibility from working from home and being able to run out in the middle of the day and take your kids to the doctor's offices, or maybe it's your parents to the doctor's office, whatever that caregiving responsibility is. And so for me as an entrepreneur, I started raising funds last fall. And I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm very pregnant, as you heard. And I was able to do my full fundraise remotely, which would have been just so hard as a mom and with a 3-year-old and having to balance that and shift that. So that's one big thing. Being able to fundraise and not have to travel the country and do that does make it a little bit easier, and not to mention cheaper as well. Secondly, networking events. So I am a very outgoing person, but when you have a kid, it's hard to make all the networking events, and it's hard to make all the travel for business. And we know from the literature that networking events and traveling for work help you get promotions and help you get ahead. And now that events like this are online, they're a lot more accessible for people, and in particular women. And so I'm hoping that some of these trends allow women to move forward, but in general, we've been propelled back during this pandemic.
Thank you, Andrea. Shoma, what has work life been like for you? What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, can totally relate to many of the things Andrea just said. My children are not as young as yours, so I have that advantage. But they're still in a position where they need help, they need support. So the way it's been working specifically with the kids has been that they have been, in school some days and remote other days. So now I have to kind of drop everything in the middle of the afternoon and go pick them up from school. But like Andrea said, that's a lot easier to do when I'm here and I'm close to their school rather than having to be in the office. The other thing that's been really nice has been taking breaks in the middle of the day. I never would have gone for a run in the middle of the day because there's not a shower at the office, not that I would even want a shower if there were one. So I really think that that kind of breaks it up mentally. And then if you're on till 7, 8 p.m. at night, who cares? I mean, that's the one thing, is that you sort of never really unplug, but you can make it work for you as best you can. And I think that's been the big benefit of this thing. Like Andrea said, there's nothing good about this pandemic, but there may be some things which we've been able to leverage out of it, which hopefully will continue in the future, because that's really what we're looking at now. Now we're planning for people coming back to work more. And I don't mean just the factory, because the factory's been there every day, day in and day out, but the other people, the office people, the support people. And so we have to figure out what that's going to look like. And I think offering people flexibility is going to allow us to maintain employees who may otherwise have made different choices potentially. So I definitely see, that there are some benefits to what we have all learned in the last year.
Thank you, Shoma. Asmita, it seems like you're really involved on the operational side within your company. What kinds of challenges have you seen during the pandemic in terms of balancing your life and maintaining a successful operation at your company?
So I'll talk about our company first, as a little bit separate from my role. But as everyone knows, our company is a manufacturing company, it 24/7 operation. And through this pandemic, we are obviously one of the what they call essential services, because we manufacture a lot of the diagnostics for COVID kits. A lot of critical medical safety supplies, and so a lot of critical manufacturing. And so when the pandemic hit, and pretty much it was like, total shutdown, it wasn't so for our company. In fact, we had to grow our operations even further, because we had to support the sudden spike on some of these products that had to get out of the door. And so for our company, it was, some of the initial time of the pandemic was a challenge, because we had to increase the number of shifts. We had to add people, we had to train people, and we had to get the product out, doing all of these things while keeping our staff safe. And so really hats off to our manufacturing folks and people who are at the plant day in and out, trying to really keep the factories going and making sure that the product gets out of the door. So that's my company side of things. And then in my role is focused on bringing technologies and faster to market, to commercialization and growing, really understanding what the needs are for the patients, understanding what we need to get to the market, and then figuring out how can we move that faster, the product faster to commercialization. And some of the learnings really through this pandemic, and I'm going to switch a little bit to not just my sort of lifestyle changes, but sort of my thinking has changed. I do some work through patient centricity and understanding human factors and considerations. And through this pandemic, especially for home use devices or diagnostics or drug delivery devices, what we found out is that this pandemic has brought three things, which is isolation, remote learning, and really no access to hospitals, or minimizing access to hospitals and nurses and staff. And so it's really about the patients being able to learn a lot of this on their own. And so as we build these medical devices and develop these, whether it's auto injectors or testing kits, or there is so much human factors consideration that needs to go in them being able to use this or self-administer the drugs, patients by themselves. And just this learning of thinking through exactly how you want to develop these devices and being able to provide it to the patients. I think I've grown through this pandemic a lot, just learning about human factors and the considerations that are so much more important now through this pandemic. And then finally, in my lifestyle of things, like what Shoma and Andrea were talking about with their kids. My kids are older and college going. And so, although they don't need me as much, I sit at the kitchen table, which is right next to the kitchen, and the kids are always in the kitchen. And so it's oftentimes where I'm on conference calls or, team meetings, and, there's all this noise behind me, and I have to explain every time what's going on. And I think, it's actually brought us closer, I think, with my, with the customers, with my own team, and with my, company folks. People can relate to that and understand what's going on in the background when the refrigerators and the doors are being opened, and there's always this, sort of noise behind me. They understand what's going on, so I think in that matter, it's brought us closer. I think we can relate to each other, and more forgiving, and more, we have more flexibility, and I think it really improves the team culture, and just the understanding and people-to-people relationship has improved because of that, being open and being able to understand each other.
Excellent. So, I do want to talk about this transitional period, right? Folks are now, more and more folks are becoming vaccinated, and the world just seems to be opening up a little bit more. It seems you're all still kind of working from home at the moment. I myself have been reporting to the office at Toxicon. We've been open. That's something I boast. We've had 0 days of shutdown. Similar to you, Asmita, we've had to make some adjustments to our work schedules to ensure the safety of our employees, which means some folks came really early in the morning or really late at night or on the weekends. We limited capacity within our administrative offices as well. So those were some challenges that we experienced. As well as some of the supply chain issues that you described, things that you take for granted, like reagents, some availability of scheduling was just so challenging. So those are the things that we saw here. What are your plans for transitioning, through this? What are some of the things that you plan to keep that you took from this experience, and what are the things that you're really looking forward to? Shoma, would you mind getting us started?
Yeah, sure. So Harvard Bioscience also was not closed at all during the last year. So same kind of thing. You mentioned the supply chain challenges. Who knew that there would be an issue with cardboard or with glass vials? That's just not something you think is going to be a problem. So yeah, we definitely faced and are continuing to face our sets of challenges with lead times on our deliveries. And so that's been tough to manage with customers. We're trying to set expectations properly and whatnot. But so moving forward, so like both of you, the factory has been open. The factory workers have been there. Also, same kind of thing, staggering their shifts, staggering their breaks. The office staff, by and large, especially when we were down at the 25% capacity, were not really there at all, because we wanted to make sure we could reserve as much of the space as we could for the people who absolutely had to be there, ship product out the door, receiving stuff in and whatnot. So we are absolutely going to embrace some level of allowing people to continue to work remotely. But I definitely also think that we're going to have more face-to-face. Some of the stuff is just too difficult to do over remote connection. It's more, what I find is, especially with some of the personalities, like if you go into the lab, they won't actually send you an email about a problem, but if you walk into the lab and say, hey, how's it going? Then they will tell you. They're like, well, this machine went down and my network drop's not working and this and that. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know any of this, so I had to physically be here for you to tell me that. So we definitely are going to have a hybrid model moving forward. We're going to gather safely when we can. We're definitely going to have certain situations where we're going to want people in the office. And then we will allow people the flexibility to, really have certain days where they don't have to necessarily come in. And like I said earlier, I think that's going to really help us be more attractive as an employer. One thing I wanted to quickly touch on is, this big stimulus check and the unemployment. This is actually preventing us from being able to find really good talent in certain cases. Temporary employees, they in some cases would rather not work. They just would rather stay home and kind of collect the checks. So trying to get good talent so we can flex up for the demand that we're seeing right now because of the coronavirus pandemic and the extra backlog that we're carrying. It's been tough to get talent in that. So hopefully as things start to settle down, and like you said, Rosalind, stuff's starting to open up, people are getting vaccinated, things will hopefully start to settle down. But it's going to still be, probably the better part of 2021, at least from my perspective.
And Andrea, what are you planning for return to normal work life? Whatever the new normal is.
Exactly. Well, thanks for the question. Well, we're a startup, and we're a startup that frankly took off during the pandemic. So a lot of our workplace practices were defined during the pandemic. And our team is a remote team, not just because of the pandemic, but because of how we've hired. And so we will continue to work remotely. We have a remote first culture and how we have launched our company. And so what does that mean? It looks like just like what everyone else's workplace looks like right now, Zoom, a whole lot of Slack. And so we spend just a tremendous amount of time communicating asynchronously. And to Shoma's point, we don't get that, sitting next to each other, being able to ask questions. So we've been able to establish a lot of our practices during the pandemic, and those will continue to persist. We are incubator members, so we'll most likely start to work a bit in the incubator after. But honestly, we'll be spending a lot of time at home still, and because I'll have 2 young kids, some will be in daycare, but nonetheless, I'm not opposed to that as well. So that's one aspect of it. Secondly, what's been a little bit more challenging is the product development side, is the ability, exactly what Shoma said, to be able to go and ask questions. And so we've had to establish a whole bunch of workarounds there, but nonetheless, we've been able to figure it out. And where there's a will, there's a way. So we'll probably continue a ton of the practices that were stood up during the pandemic, and then ask ourselves that hard question, do we need to travel? Do we need to establish that workplace culture in person, or are we still thriving in this remote first mentality?
Asmita, is there anything that you wanted to add about what your plans are?
Well, I would say, yeah, I can totally relate to exactly what was said before. And maybe, a hybrid model sounds really good. And I think that's what that would really help for sort of the slow transition, and hoping that we can all travel soon as well and meet up with everyone face to face. And we'll see how that goes. But I'm hoping that through this year, we get past this transition and all is normal for the next year. I'm hoping that we can sort of bridge that gap, and next year will be all normal for all of us.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm really, every day that goes by, I'm feeling a little bit more hopeful, even than I was just a few months ago. So I think the floodgate's going to open. Hopefully everybody will try to be safe in it. But I'm a firm believer of let's get as many people vaccinated as we can. So we do have a couple questions that came in through the audience. This one is with referring to human factors and usability for patient experience and engagement. How has MDR or IVDR changed this? Anybody want to field this one?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit without going too much into advanced quality planning here. But so I think, first of all, I think the COVID has really, like I was saying, the pandemic has really opened our eyes to really look at human factors, and the considerations that we need to take, because of the three things we talked about, was the isolation. So there is this emotional feel of how you deal with devices at home. And second is being remote, remote training, remote learning. So the complaints about how to use this device or at home has gone up. And so the first thing about really about human factors to consider is making sure that the devices are intuitive, and when people do not have trainers or healthcare professionals to help them through learning and getting used to these devices. Just looking at the device, being able to use it, they need to be non-threatening, not having long IFUs that they can't understand. So there are all of these considerations that come into play. In addition to that, we also need to think about diversity. We can't be using this one size fits all kind of model anymore. You've got the pediatric version, you got the geriatric version, and then you have people in between, and you can't be designing for just the people in between. You have to really consider, that it won't be one size fits all. And then finally, also taking into account the disparity of, not everybody has technology access, Wi-Fi, technology adoption. We need to really start to think about some of those things. So that I wanted to first touch base upon how the pandemic has affected the human factors thinking. And now moving on to MDR, and really thinking about, it's really the three legs of the stool with patient focus. And the three things we need to look at, first is the usability studies. So that's, formative, summative. That's the first leg of the stool through the development. The second one is the clinical outcome. So that will be the focus on clinical studies, making sure, the therapeutic outcome comes through that. And then the third leg of the stool is risk control, which goes through the entire cycle of development, whether it's for combination product, whether it's for, a new drug application. It's all about these three things. So to just summarize in a nutshell, and, the new guidance really provides, a lot of details and a lot of guidance in these areas. And as long as you can manage through these three, I think you are really looking at a patient-centric development. So that's sort of my take, on this.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of insight on it, though, Smita. So we're very grateful for that. So we do have another question that came in for Andrea. Folks really want to dive into your experience with fundraising and what that was like during this pandemic, and being a woman and balancing life and all of that. Can you give us an idea of what it really took to fundraise?
Yeah, well, thanks so much for the question. So fundraising during the pandemic, on one hand was great because I could do it all over Zoom, and it wasn't, all these meetings where you'd have to travel the country and be stuck in airports and be spending a ton of money doing it in the process as well. So in one sense, that was quite a bit easier. And so you also didn't feel as bad, right, when you got rejected, because that's a huge part of the fundraising process is say that you get the email 2 days later, we're not interested. Well, at least you didn't spend, $1,000 on the flight or spend time away from your family and give up a lot in the process. So that was a huge positive. And the fact that investors are definitely more open to being pitched and eventually funding someone, even if they've never met in person. So I would say 80% of our investors I've never met in person in real life. So that's been a huge positive. And other aspects of it though are hard because there aren't as many networking events. And there's pros and cons of that. In terms of being a woman fundraising, so I actually testified in Congress about this last year before the pandemic. I'm doing a telelactation company, which is inherently a woman's health, maternal health product. And I've been very lucky so far that I've gotten great support from investors, but sometimes the pain point doesn't resonate with them, or you'll hear things like, well, that space is pretty full because one company exists or two company exists, and my response to that is saying that, well, we haven't solved the problem if one or two maternal health companies exist. First off, a rising tide lifts all boats in the industry, but this is a huge underinvested problem. And so you'll hear that a lot. And, another aspect of fundraising, which is not unique to being a woman, but you get told no a ton. So I have been keeping track how many pitches I've done. It's in the 90s now. And we have about 8 investors. And so this is our pre-seed round. So you do the math, that's a lot of rejection. And we're so grateful for the investors that we have. But you just get very, very used to hearing no and not letting it hurt you. Now, on the research side about fundraising, I did want to mention that there is a lot of unconscious bias as a female that does exist. Fiona Murray at MIT did a study where a woman and a man had the exact same pitch, and they tested it orally only and orally plus visually. And in both scenarios, a investment panel always ranked the male higher than the woman as being a higher investment potential, both just with audio and both audio and visual. So there is this unconscious bias that happens. And unfortunately, that's just something that you have to deal with and overcome. And what I would say is just continue to be yourself and find your champions along the way.
I think that's an excellent point, in that this is why we need to have more panels like this. This is why we need to have our faces in front of other women to show that it is possible. It is possible to be successful in our roles. You have to fight for it, and you have to have people to support you along the way. And one of the beautiful things about this organization and why I've been a part of it for so long is that women are naturally uplifting, right? We kind of had to create this community to get where we are. I was hoping that you could talk about your experiences of how someone how did you get to where you are, like through the help, or did you have a mentor or someone, male or female for that matter, that helped I don't think a lot of us can do it on our own. Some of us can, but how did you seek that? Like, what kind of support did you get? Shoma, would you be able to talk about that for us?
Oh yeah, this is one of my most favorite topics. First of all, I completely agree with what you just said, Rosalind, that representation is so important. It has been very, very rare that I have actually had a female mentor in my career. I have been incredibly lucky with my male mentors who have raised me up and supported me and given me opportunities, really made or break my career. I did have one female mentor who she is absolutely fabulous. Also an engineer. She's a little bit older than I am, but I looked up to her. She was the SVP and general manager of the division that I worked in, and she kind of took me under her wing, and she sort of showed me that it was possible. Her alone on this senior leadership team, facing the challenges day in and day out. And I think about it, and for her, she had even fewer role models. I was lucky enough to have her, but who did she have? So, and again, I'm not trying to say that there weren't fabulous male mentors as well. And there have been several men who have believed in me and given me chances. Even now, I have followed my CEO. This is the third company that I've been with him. So clearly he's doing something right that is making me inspired to be with him. So definitely it's important to seek that kind of support where you can. Look at what good is happening around you, be inspired by it, and then try to emulate it, and then walk the talk. That way, you never can underestimate the women that work for you or the women that are in your company. They're watching. They're watching how you react to things. They're watching whether you get emotional at certain situations, or if you handle them with grace. People are always paying attention. And truly, I've been so lucky and so blessed to land where I have been.
Asmita, do you have anything to add? As someone here, I feel like even in the brief time that we've all interacted, I feel like I've learned a tremendous amount from all of you. Can you tell us about the people in your life that helps you get to where you are?
Yeah, I would completely agree with Shoma that you need mentors along the way, and you sometimes you need to find them, sometimes you need to approach them and sort of engage with them by yourself. If how can I learn from you? How can I grow from where I am? I think we all will agree, getting out of engineering college, you're not prepared for what to expect when you actually go to work. And it starts off not with just what you learned from your engineering school as your base, but it's also a lot of soft skills. How do you talk to people? How do you build your team? How do you lead people to believing what you believe in? And there are so many things to learn, and I've been certainly very fortunate to have these mentors in my life. And again, just like Shoma said, very few women mentors, just because of the field that we've chosen. There is less representation, but people did support in whatever I wanted to do, whatever I believed in, and I really got to learn a lot, whether it was hands-on skills or talk about how to present at conferences, or how to approach people, how to gain the soft skills. And I've certainly tried to do some of that, of what I have learned, through passing it on again to the next generation. And I truly believe that it starts right from from schools, from high school kids, being able to connect with girls in high school, talk to them about STEM careers, getting them interested in robotics or STEM, research, giving them internship opportunities, or more like job shadowing at high school. level, but then into college, giving them internship opportunities, being able to really talk to them, embolden them in how to speak to others and speak your mind and be able to communicate what you're thinking as a problem solving approach. And certainly forums like this are important. And I think my one advice to everybody is certainly have many mentors in your career path, and they will help you and guide you and inspire you to do a lot of things.
Thanks so much, Asmita. So you actually, that's a great segue into really what can we all do to encourage folks who maybe are in the audience that are early on in their careers in STEM. Perhaps, how do we target and get more people interested at an even younger age, elementary school, middle school, high school? Andrea, what are you doing anything in that area? You seem to have had a lot of experience in sort of this underrepresented population. Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. So along with my company, I actually still teach part-time at Cornell and the College of Engineering and College of Business. And so it's super important for me that some of the undergraduate and graduate women see a woman faculty member in engineering speaking, and they see me as a pregnant woman, that you can do both. It's hard, and by the way, we need to not hide how hard it is. The baby's kicking right now as I speak here, and that's extremely hard to be operating in an environment like that. And I think we need to, be there for each other. But to go back to the question, I think it's really important that there are role models and you are present in these environments when young women and girls are making decisions. So as I mentioned earlier, my mom was an engineer, and no doubt I followed in her footsteps. And it goes back to the Marian Wright Edelman quote: "You can't be what you can't see." And so the work that Asmita was talking about was first robotics. So making sure you're present in the community. And for me, that presence is in undergraduate settings so that I can be there and share my career path. And as an engineer, as a scientist, you can be an engineer or scientist, or you can go into government, you can start a company. Here's all the different pathways that are available to you. Another thing that I've done is I started a women's entrepreneurship group at Cornell that's focused on STEM women, because we don't see the numbers, in particular STEM women in these deep tech fields like you see in the life sciences as you do as the male counterpart. So we started a program called We Cornell, or Women Entrepreneurs Cornell, which is an on-ramp to our other entrepreneurship programs here that helps teach and train and expose STEM women to what it takes to start a company. And as part of that, we talk about, how do you apply for a patent? And so this is something that was very important to me, is how we create on-ramps to programs. Right now, it's not a pipeline issue, actually. More women than ever are getting undergraduate degrees and graduate degrees. But what is also happening right now, though, is we see this drop-off when women, unfortunately, start having kids, and that's where we see the leadership drop-off. That's what the data shows. So I think other things that we can be doing, along with helping to support this pipeline and continue this pipeline, is how do we retain women and build them up? And when they're in situations like mine, being super duper pregnant, not discounting them, but helping to amplify them and build them up and help support them as they encounter that transition.
That is so excellent. One thing I really appreciate is just how real we are about, let's not kid ourselves that we can just rise to the top without actually having to deal with some of the things that are uniquely, things that women have to do in terms of balancing their family life and having to climb that much harder or to get the same that men are often afforded. So we have just another 10 minutes left in this talk, and so there seems to be a lot of interest in where do you all see yourselves going from here? Because it doesn't stop here, right? You're all still plenty young. There's a lot to do. So Shoma, where do you see yourself going from here in terms of your career? What goals do you hope to accomplish in the near future? How about near and far?
Near and far. Okay. Well, I think it's actually continuing the same kind of theme as what we've been talking about on the mentorship, right? So now I feel like I'm in a position where I have young women working for me, and it's now my job to mentor them and to raise them up, men and women, not just women, right? The people who are really the most talented ones. How do we encourage them to stay? How do we show them how what success looks like? And how can we ensure we lift them up so that they can then basically replace us and own it? I mean, I feel like you always should be grooming somebody to be your replacement so that you can move up and on. So I think my main goal in the near future, other than making Harvard Bioscience a most amazing place to work, is to really see what we can do for the next generation, the young engineers that are coming in, the co-ops, the interns. How can we really engage them, give them opportunities, and give them a chance to really shine? These people are so smart. Like it blows my mind sometimes, how smart they come out of school, or they're young in their career, and they're just, all they need is a little bit of confidence, a little bit of support. So that's really, I think, the main thing. Other than that, I'm trying to work myself out of a job, and hopefully my boss is trying to work himself out of a job so I can take his job. So really, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And Asmita, what else do you have left to accomplish?
So I can tell I ask this question every day is what do I really want to do? And I think, like what Shoma said, at this point, you're starting to think about a broader picture, and you've accomplished some things that you wanted to, and now you take a step back and look at what do you really want to do. And the two things I want to do is, in my field, I would like to make an impact where, from the learnings that I have through the progress of how to bring medical devices to market, if there was ways of being able to align some of these things so we can actually bring the novel therapies faster to the patients. I think if there is ways that I could help, and from what I have learned, my lessons and opportunities, that's one thing that I would like to do, is being able to really bring devices faster and closer to the patients, and also therapies. So that's one thing. And then on the second side is more towards really being able to give back to the community. We talked about the FIRST Robotics program, being able to teach high school kids robotics, or offering mentorship, internship, really going after girls in STEM, women in STEM, helping with, sometimes they just need somebody to talk to through their struggles. And one thing that I would like to tell everybody is it's not easy, and there are going to be failures, and it's not about winning everything, but it's about learning through all of this, and being that person there for people when they want to talk to you, and be able to pick them up and pick up the pieces and stand up again and go for your dreams. So I think those are the two areas that where I would like to focus on in the future.
And we have Andrea here. What's the plan for you with your startup, and what's your plan in the long term?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, it's, right now for me, it's day by day. But in thinking about the future, very tied to this mission of infant nutrition. And I see myself being in this arena for a very long time, whether it's with my company or, I mentioned that I have dove into government policy and been a part of government policy for a while, and I was on the Biden-Harris presidential transition team, so I can't escape it. And what I see even after this company, and I'm very positive and bullish on the success we'll have. And what I'm hoping is after the company, I can take what we've learned and then help create some systematic policies to make a even bigger impact across the country, and using the platform or being part of team government to take some of the things I've learned by founding this company to impact not only maternal health, infant nutrition, but also how do we create a more equitable culture for women and making sure that we allow women to thrive. So I can see myself going the policy route after this.
Oh, that's so cool. And for myself, I'm here listening to all of your stories. I'm taking little bits and pieces and kind of putting them all together to make my own story. I love the idea of continuing mentorship, to find the right mentor for myself and to share that knowledge with the folks that I'm overseeing. In the brief time that I've been, overseeing a team, I've already done, several promotions and put people, people want that. They want to see growth. They want to know that they are capable. And all it took was somebody putting that into me and then transferring it to someone else. So I love this idea of continuing to grow and learn that we're never done. We're never done learning, and nothing's going to stop us, won't stop us. So with only a few minutes left, I do want to let our audience know that we do have a networking event following this. There should be a link that will be posted in your chat window. It's also streaming just below. Or if you go to your swap card, there should be a button for you to access it. Hopefully all of our panelists will be joining us there. I'd love to connect with all of you after this as well. If there are any other questions from the audience, we only do have a few moments left. If anybody has any closing remarks here, Asmita, Shoma, Andrea, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you all. I can't wait till we can all just hang out in real life. I feel like we could all just be, sitting around drinking some wine like we had planned originally.
Andrea.
Huh?
Andrea.
Soon enough.
Again, I want to thank Rachel Robinson and Brian Johnson from MassMedic for hosting this event along with Informa. It has been a real pleasure to be a part of this. From all of these local Boston gals, I think we're all in the Boston area. It's really great to be able to share our stories with all of you, I think, that are from all over the world. So do stay in touch. Check in with us at the networking event. We're happy to answer any additional questions that we weren't able to field today.
Rosalind, thank you so much. You've really done a great job here. Thank
you, Rosalind.
Of course. So with that, we have a couple minutes left. And, if you want to do a fun one here and keep it simple, is if you had to summarize yourself with one word. Now you can think long and hard about.
Yeah, I'll go first. Driven.
Yes.
I have two answers. Right now, round, but secondly, and more often, is energetic.
Yeah, I was going to say energetic, but now I guess I should pick something else. But I think just ambitious, driven, energetic, kind of all of the above. How about you, Rosalind?
Oh gosh, really, this is a hard one to summarize in one word. I would say inspired.
Great.
Yeah, I think this experience has opened my eyes to a lot of different avenues and has only encouraged me to continue doing work in STEM, especially during this time when the work that we're doing has so much more meaning day to day knowing that we are putting products out there that are saving lives. I've always known it was something I wanted to do. And I am just so relieved to know that there are brilliant minds like you out there, working all different avenues to accomplish the same mission. So really, congratulations to you all.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rosalind. I mean, hats off and a big shout out to everybody in MedTech. I mean, I think, we as an industry kept things going, when everybody was home. And I think that's just a big shout out from all of us to the MedTech industry.
Yeah.